Have you ever laid awake at night, staring into the darkness, and felt a chilling emptiness inside? A feeling that no matter what you achieve, no matter how hard you run, a silent, creeping dread follows you? This isn't about ghosts or monsters in the closet. It's about the psychological horror of a meaningless existence. It's a terror that whispers you are not enough. If this chilling feeling sounds familiar, then stay with me. The story you are about to hear on Daily Horror FMi isn't just a tale. It's a mirror that might save you from the abyss of your own existential dread. In a village cradled by silent, watching hills and a river that murmured forgotten secrets, lived a young man named Daniel. To the world, Daniel was a pillar of strength. He was the one who rebuilt the miller's dam after the Great Flood, the one who hunted the wolf that plagued their livestock, the one whose name was synonymous with success. He had a home, respect, and a list of accomplishments that others could only dream of. But every night, when the village slept and the world grew quiet, Daniel's private horror began. It was a cold, hollow feeling that gnawed at his soul. His victories felt like ashes in his mouth. He would look at the trophies and accolades lining his walls, and instead of pride, he would feel a profound and terrifying emptiness. It was a creeping existential dread, a silent scream in his mind that asked, "Is this all there is?" He was living a life that looked perfect on the outside, but felt like a haunted, empty house on the inside. This invisible torment was a far greater beast than any wolf he had ever faced. The weight of this silent suffering became unbearable. Daniel knew he couldn't continue this way. The dread was poisoning every sunrise, turning his waking hours into a performance of a life he no longer felt. He had heard whispers, fragmented stories told by travelers, of a wise hermit named Eli who lived deep within the shadows of the forest that bordered the village. They said Eli didn't offer simple solutions, but held up a strange kind of mirror to those who sought him, a mirror that revealed the fractured parts of one's own soul. Desperate for an escape from his inner turmoil, Daniel decided to embark on this journey. It wasn't a journey of miles, but a journey into the unknown depths of himself. One bleak morning, with a heart heavy with a mixture of fear and a sliver of hope, he left his perfect-looking life behind and walked towards the dark woods. The path to Eli's dwelling was not well trodden. It was tangled with thorns and twisted roots, as if the forest itself tested the resolve of those who dared to enter. After a long and arduous walk, a journey that felt like a pilgrimage through his own despair, he found it, a small, unassuming wooden hut, with smoke curling from its chimney like a single, quiet breath. When Daniel finally stood before him, the old man, Eli, didn't seem surprised. He simply looked up, his gaze calm and penetrating, a faint, kind smile playing on his lips. The sight of this profound peace was so alien to Daniel's tormented state that his carefully constructed composure crumbled. "Wise one," Daniel's voice was barely a whisper, thick with the sorrow he had carried for so long. "I need your help. I have built a life of success. I have done everything a man is supposed to do. I work until my hands bleed and my back aches. Yet, I am empty. There is a void inside me that nothing can fill. I feel haunted. Please tell me, how do I find true happiness? How do I escape this feeling?" Eli listened patiently, his eyes never leaving Daniel's face. He let the silence hang in the air for a moment, allowing Daniel's words to settle. Then, he spoke, his voice gentle but firm. "Your pain is real, son, but answers are not given. They are discovered. I will guide you, but first, you must do a simple, yet difficult, task for me." Eli gestured towards an old, weathered wooden bucket sitting by the door. It was warped with age, and Daniel could clearly see several cracks running down its sides. "Take this bucket," Eli said. "For 1 week. I want you to go to the river each morning, fill it with water, and bring it back to pour into my well. But understand this, the bucket is broken." Daniel stared at the bucket, then back at Eli. A wave of confusion and frustration washed over him. It seemed like a fool's errand, a pointless joke. But he was desperate, and the hope that this bizarre task held a hidden meaning was the only thing he had left to cling to. Without a word, he nodded, picked up the cracked bucket, and left. Day 1. The first morning was filled with a sense of reluctant purpose. Daniel marched to the river, the sun beating down on his neck. He filled the bucket to the brim, the cool water a brief respite. But the journey back was a lesson in immediate failure. Water streamed from the cracks, leaving a dark, wet trail on the dusty path. By the time he reached the well, barely a quarter of the water remained. He poured the pathetic amount into the deep, dark well, the sound of the splash echoing his own sense of inadequacy. He felt foolish, but he had promised. Day 2. Frustration began to set in. Daniel tried to walk faster, hoping to outrun the leaks. He stumbled, jarring his shoulder, and lost even more water. The path seemed longer, the sun hotter. He saw the villagers watching him from a distance, their expressions a mixture of pity and confusion. He, Daniel, the great achiever, was now the village fool, carrying a broken bucket. The psychological horror of his public failure was a new kind of torment. That night, he barely slept, the image of the leaking bucket haunting his dreams. Day 3 and 4. By the middle of the week, Daniel was on the verge of giving up. Despair was his constant companion. He tried to plug the cracks with mud and leaves, but the water always found a way through. The task felt utterly meaningless, a cruel metaphor for his own life, all his efforts just leaking away into nothingness. He would sit by the river for long periods, staring at the useless bucket, the embodiment of his own brokenness. He saw himself in its flaws, in its inability to fulfill its one simple purpose. Day 5 and 6. Something shifted in Daniel. Resignation began to replace his anger. He stopped fighting the bucket. He accepted the leaks. He walked at a steady pace, no longer rushing. He began to notice things he hadn't before. The way the sunlight filtered through the trees, the sound of the birds, the feeling of the earth beneath his feet. He was still failing at the task, but the sting of that failure was starting to fade, replaced by a strange sense of calm. He was just a man, walking a path, carrying a broken bucket. The simplicity of it was almost peaceful. After one long, grueling week, Daniel returned to Ellie's hut. He placed the nearly empty bucket at the old man's feet. His voice was heavy, not with the anguish of before, but with a weary acceptance. "Grandpa," he said, "I have failed. The well is no fuller than it was when I started. I could not do it." Eli bestowed upon him a warm, knowing smile. "Oh, but you did not fail, my boy," he said softly. "In fact, you have succeeded beautifully. You did exactly what I hoped you would. Now turn around. Look back at the path you have walked every day." Daniel turned, his brow furrowed in confusion, and then his eyes widened in utter astonishment. The path, which for years had been a barren, dusty track of dry earth, was now transformed. Along both sides of the trail, where the water from his broken bucket had dripped, a vibrant line of life had bloomed. Tiny wildflowers of blue, yellow, and red, and lush, green grass grew in a miraculous ribbon of color, tracing the exact route of his daily failure. It was breathtaking. "How? How is this possible?" Daniel stammered, his voice filled with awe. Ellie's eyes shone with a profound wisdom. "The water that you saw as waste, the leaks that you saw as failure, gave life to this barren ground," he explained. "Your efforts were never in vain, Daniel. You were so focused on the goal of filling the well that you couldn't see the beauty you were creating along the way." He continued, "This is the nature of life. We are all cracked buckets. We all have flaws, weaknesses, and moments where we feel broken. You were consumed by the existential dread of not reaching a perfect destination. But true happiness is not found in the final achievement. It is found in the journey. It is found in the small, often unnoticed impact we have as we walk our path. It is the beauty we unintentionally create, the lives we touch, the seeds of kindness we sow, even with our imperfections. Your cracks did not make you useless. They are what allowed the flowers to grow. At that moment, a profound understanding dawned within Daniel. The heavy, cold dread that had gripped his heart for so long finally began to dissolve. He understood that his life wasn't a series of goals to be conquered, but a journey to be lived. His imperfections were not a source of shame, but a part of his story, capable of creating unexpected beauty. He returned to his village, not as a man who had all the answers, but as a man who was finally at peace with his questions. He began to find joy not in the completion of a task, but in the process itself. He started teaching the village children to carve wood, not caring if their creations were perfect, but celebrating the joy on their faces as they tried. He started helping his neighbors, not for the recognition, but for the simple connection it brought. His life was still full of effort, but it was no longer empty. This story from Daily Horror FMi teaches us a powerful lesson. We often chase perfection, terrified of our own flaws. But perhaps our cracks are not curses. Perhaps they are the very channels through which we water the world around us. If this story resonated with the deepest parts of your soul, please show your support by hitting that like button. Subscribe to Daily Horror FMi and ring the bell so you don't miss our explorations into the horrors and wonders of the human condition. Share this video with someone who might be carrying their own cracked bucket. Thank you for watching.